Do you want to go viral on Pinterest in 2021? I have got some awesome news for you. Pinterest is opening up about their new algorithm changes and how you can use the platform to get the best results for your blog, website, or business. And today I'm going to run you through 5 viral strategies you can implement as of today so you get hundreds of potential customers to your website in no time. Hi there, I'm Katie of whatskatieupto.com and I'm a Swiss blogger and Pinterest expert. And today I want to teach you how to go viral on Pinterest. There are many strategies how you can increase your reach on Pinterest, but today I want to go into 5 strategies specifically that you can use to go viral in 2021. And if you're new to Pinterest, make sure you grab your free guide on how to get 10 customers from Pinterest to your website in the next 10 days in the description below. Okay, let's jump into the 5 things you can do today to go viral in 2021. All right, so let's jump in. So the first tip that I am going to cover is what is a fresh pin and why is it important? So the Pinterest algorithm continues to focus on fresh pins in 2021. So if you're new to my channel, let's do a quick recap. What are fresh pins? So we're just here inside of Pinterest and you can see all of these pins. Now you could go ahead and repin them. So for example, I could go to this pin and say, I want to save this to one of the following boards here. So this is a repin. When I pin this pin for the first time to Pinterest, so I create a pin in CANVA, for example, and I upload it to Pinterest here, then it's a fresh pin. So new pins are fresh pins and repins aren't counted as fresh pins. Let's quickly jump over to Tailwind and I will link this article for you to check out because it's super important. And you can see here that they say the following: fresh pins are defined by Pinterest as images or videos that they haven't seen before. So new images count as new content, even if it's an old blog post or old article when saved to Pinterest for the first time. So what are duplicate pins then? You can see it here. Duplicate pins are pins with an exact image URL combination that has already been pinned to Pinterest before by you or anyone else. So this sounds super complicated, but all it means is that if you have this pin again, you can see that this pin goes to this URL here. So this is meant by pin URL combination. And if Pinterest has seen this before, then, so if, for example, if you do pin this pin to your board, Pinterest has seen this pin before, so it is a duplicate pin and not a fresh pin. So my first tip is to not focus on repinning other people's pins anymore. Focus on creating more pins per blog post, per product, per article that you write. And I actually recommend you create 3 to 10 unique pins per blog post, product, or article. And if we jump into a blog post that I wrote, for example, you can see here I wrote about the 6 reasons why your business needs a blog. And if we go to the Tailwind extension here, you can see that I actually created tons and tons of different unique fresh pin images for that single blog post. Because the more fresh pins you can put out to Pinterest, the more opportunity you have for people to see your pins and click over to your website and create viral pins. All right, so tip number 2, how much pinning is right. Now, for a long time, Pinterest was not giving guidance on how much you could pin to Pinterest and how much they would consider as too much pinning per day, for example. Now, this has changed a little bit, and according to Pinterest and Tailwind, and you know, Tailwind is a Pinterest scheduler that is working with Pinterest. They're fully, you're fully allowed to use Tailwind to pin your pins to Pinterest, and they have analyzed a ton of users using Tailwind, and they have found that as a guideline, Tailwind has found that our most successful members pin around 15 to 25 pins per day, so this is a good range to aim towards. So this also means that pinning at much higher rates, such as for example 50 pins a day, especially if most of these pins are duplicates, so repins, then according to Pinterest, you're exposing your account to unnecessary risk and hurting the distribution of your content on Pinterest. And this could lead to less engagement for your pins and less traffic to your website. So you're not giving your pins the opportunity to go viral. Now, if you are using Tailwind, which I really do recommend, and you can find a link to Tailwind in the description, you can start with them for free. And I schedule everything, all my pins with Tailwind. It makes my life so much easier. So if you're using Tailwind to schedule out your pins, then they also help you out a lot with being compliant with these guidelines that Pinterest puts out. So to make it easier for you, they have developed a tool called Smart Guide. And Smart Guide helps you to stay updated on all the Pinterest guidelines. So whenever there is a blue heart sign, something like this means Smart Guide is analyzing your activity and guiding you on whether you comply with Pinterest guidelines or if you should adapt your strategy. So for example, here you can see all clear, your pinning frequency is in line with current best practices. Smart Guide will keep monitoring your account for opportunities to increase your reach. So this is really super helpful. So my tip number 2, how much pinning is right? I would go for and aim for pinning around 15 to 25 pins a day as a maximum. Okay, so my tip number 3 has to do with boards. Now, as repinning becomes less and less important, I don't recommend pinning a fresh new pin over and over and over again. Instead, I want you to pin it to your 3 to 10 most relevant boards. Now, pinning the same pin to too many boards again can reduce its effectiveness and limit its potential to go viral. So you don't want to pin your pin to too many boards. So let's make an example for this. I have a pin here about the Brave at Business bundle that I am speaking in this November. And you can see that I have just uploaded it to Tailwind Drafts, and here you can select your boards. So I told you I recommend to pin this pin to 3 to 10 boards. And what I would do first is choose the most relevant board first. So the first time Pinterest sees this pin and connects it to a board is the most relevant board for that pin. So I actually went ahead and created a special board for this event called the Brave at Business Bundle Summit, and you can see it here. So this just tells me that Tailwind is going to pin this fresh pin to this board, which is the most relevant board in my opinion. And then I would go ahead and choose 2 to 9 additional boards. So for example, this could also be relevant for business. So for example, business marketing or blogging, for example, something like this. Now you can see that here, if I go into this information bar, you can see again the blue heart as you saw here. So this is Tailwind Smart Guide helping you to comply with Pinterest guidelines. So if I hover over this, you can see that it gives me some helpful information that I have already pinned this pin, for example, to this board. But remember, this is just an example. And in your case, the idea would be that you haven't pinned this to this board. Now, if I just add another couple boards, and this is again just an example to show you what happens if you pin to more than 10 boards. So I have my 10 boards here, which is what Tailwind and Pinterest recommends. And if I pin it to the 11th board, and now you can see that this warning sign showed up, which says more than 10 boards selected. So this is Smart Guide helping you out again. And it just says, heads up, when pinning to multiple boards, Pinterest best practices recommend choosing only the most relevant boards for your content. Avoid more than 10. Pinning the same pin to too many boards can reduce its effectiveness and limit its potential reach. So it basically just tells you don't do it. You can still do it. I don't do it. I don't recommend you to do it. So my tip number 3 for boards and scheduling your pins is that you pin your new fresh pins to your most relevant board first. Schedule these pins to 3 to 10 relevant boards. 10 is the maximum, and spread each of the pins you post 2 days apart using the interval setting. I usually do 3 to 7 days apart. So just to show you, if you scroll down here, you have this use interval section here, and then you can choose 6 days, 18 days, whatever. And you can see that if you're pinning it to less than 2 days again, you can see the Tailwind Smart Guide giving you a heads up again that you should really pin your pins at least 2 days apart. So this just to reiterate my last point here, to spread each of the pins you post to the different boards at least 2 days apart. Okay, now in tip number 4, I want to talk about repinning and resharing your content on Pinterest. So is it never okay to repin anything ever again? So according to Pinterest and Tailwind and an interview that they did together, so you can see it here, and I will link that in the description below for you to check out as well if you're interested. And what they said is that you can reshare your pin once or twice a year if it is relevant to your audience. They also said that there is a natural rate of duplication of pins and that there are some very legitimate cases for resharing. For example, you can share timely seasonal pins once or twice a year, and that you should focus on creating and pinning your own content rather than repinning, but that there are cases where you could go ahead and repin content that is seasonal. So let's jump over here to Tailwind again, and you can see that I have uploaded a Christmas cookie recipe. And for me, this is the one case where I would go ahead and repin pins that I have already pinned before. So for example, this could be a cookie recipe that I created in 2019. Now this cookie recipe is still relevant in 2020 for Christmas, right? So I would go ahead and pin this pin in 2019 and then not pin it for maybe 11 months or 10 months until we close into Christmas 2020. And then I would go ahead and pin this pin again to maybe 2 to 5 boards that are relevant for this pin in 2020 again, because this pin is still relevant for my audience even if it's a year later. So for me, seasonal content is the exception when it comes to repinning your content. Okay, so let's do a quick recap for tip number 4, seasonal repins. So you can share timely and seasonal pins once or twice a year if it makes sense for that time. And if you pin a new pin to Pinterest, then I would go ahead and after the first batch of pin is out, I would not repin this pin for at least 6 months if it isn't relevant. So I wouldn't go ahead and pin a blogging pin that isn't seasonal for at least 6 months. Okay, so my final tip has to do with pin design. Now, as I've mentioned before, a fresh pin is defined as having a new image, a new pin image. And as I've said, this could mean that you go ahead and create multiple pins per blog post, but this could also mean that you create new pin images for old blog posts. Pinterest only cares about the image. Pinterest doesn't care if your blog post or product is 2 years old, as long as your pin image that you create for this post or product is brand new. So I would go ahead and create unique new images that you can create either with Canva, or I'm also going to show you an option with Tailwind Create, and go ahead and create new images for existing blog posts or multiple pins for new blog posts or new products. Now, I love using Canva to create my pins, and what I do is I went ahead and I created templates for myself and my brand. And if you go into here, you can see that I created 10 templates that I can use every time I create a new blog post or I create a new product. And then I would just go ahead and adjust those images according to the blog post that I created. So for example, for here, if we go into this template template here, I would just go ahead and duplicate this pin. Then I would go ahead and change the title to the new title of my blog post. I would go here, and they have a really good stock library if you're on the Pro plan, but you don't have to be on the Pro plan. You can use Canva totally for free. I did this for years, and you could just go ahead and switch up the image. Change the copy for this pin and change the image. Now this would be considered a fresh pin. And you can see I just used the exact same template. I just switched up the text and I switched up the image, and Pinterest will see this as a brand new fresh pin. Now the second option that you got is using Tailwind Create. Now this is a paid product that is inside of Tailwind that you can just upload an image, and Tailwind will create dozens of pin images that you can schedule and change straight inside of Tailwind. It's a really cool product. You can test it out for free, and I've also created a 1-hour free masterclass about Tailwind Create that you can join and just learn everything that you want to ever know about how to use Tailwind Create. And I will link it in the description if you are interested in using it. And as I've said, you can start Tailwind Create for free, but this is a paid option versus Canva option where you can start totally for free. So my final tip number 5, relates to pin design. So what I would love you to do is create several pins with unique new images for every new blog post or product you put out. Now they can have the same description to be a fresh pin. All you have to do is create unique images. Pinterest only cares about the image. Now for creating these pin designs, I use either Canva or Tailwind Create, and you can find more information about both products in the description of this video below. Now, these are the exact tactics I follow to create viral pins and keep my Pinterest account consistently between 700,000 and 1 million views each month. I know that if you follow these 5 tips, your next viral pin is around the corner. Now, that's it from me for today. Don't forget to click that bell and subscribe button below so you don't miss any of my videos. I post a new video about Pinterest every Tuesday. See you soon. Tschüss!